This
The
meeting
meeting
is
is
being
being
recorded.
recorded.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first of the monthly shows. I hope you've all had a lovely month. We've had a very strange month. It's been weird not sitting down on a Thursday evening to do this, and it's been odd not preparing things for that week other than just a couple of videos to upload. So it's a bit of a change. But hopefully you're all enjoying yourselves. Hopefully you're all enjoying the relaxed restrictions that we're all getting at the moment.
I'm very relaxed.
And rumor has it that Boris has given us all the go ahead to go have fun in the summer, so we can do events and
Well,
have
actually,
festivals.
on last Sunday, I went to the largest attended event this year.
Ooh,
Oh, it was. I went to Goodwood for the Festival of Speed. It was a really cool day. Um, Eldest son said, "Would you like to come with me to the Festival of Speed?" And I'm like, "Yes." And I don't know how many people. There was a lot of people there though, and it was a lot of noise, a lot of very loud unsilenced engines. I'm a bit of a fan of loud unsilenced engines, as it happens. In fact, I can be annoying because I can even go. That's a Ducati. That's a
well,
Harley.
you could be saying that you were observing things.
I
Now,
was definitely listening.
talking of observing things, I believe you have an observation to get us started.
God, you stopping me waffling?
Might be just a little bit.
Well, I've got a couple of things today. They're not so much observations in the kind of traditional simple life circle observations, but they're a couple of very relevant things. Now, the first one is today is St. Swithin's Day. Not quite sure why it is that Swithin got sainthood, because all he actually did was repair a basket of broken eggs. Now, if that was all it took to become a saint, I could do it, but I'm not a saint. Probably never will be. But the more important thing about St. Swithin's Day is that apparently, if it stays sunny on St. Swithin's Day, then we should have a good, warm, sunny summer for the rest of the season, and maybe a bit of an Indian summer. And today has been sunny. In fact, it was that sunny. I went out prepping walk this morning. We'll tell you more about that later. It's the Oxley Bottom one. And I take my shirt off. It was that hot. I take my shirt off. So there's every chance. Of course, if it rained today, and I have to admit, as I came in just now, the sky looks seriously grey. Then we're going to get a really, really wet summer. So that's one of the important notions of St. Swithin's Day. Now, the other thing is, and I'm going to have to read this because I couldn't get my brain to remember the stuff, but it's about the smell of rain. So, excuse me for reading, but this is what I'm going to do. This is the science behind the summer of rain or summer rain. So, are you sitting comfortably? Well, if you are, then I shall begin. So, after a spell of hot weather, the cool drenching provided by a sharp summer storm seems to fill the air with a sweet scent. You ever notice just how clean and fresh the air does almost taste and smell after we've had rain? Well, there's some science to go with it. This is not just our romantic imaginations at play. The smell of clean air and wet earth yields a very distinctive aroma which goes by the name of petrichor. Petrichor. I'll spell that for you in case you're just a bit suspect on my pronunciation. That's Petrichor. Petrichor. So the next time you're in the pub and you're in a quiz and you're stuck, the name of the aroma of a summer after a summer rain is petrichor. Now, I'm not finished. A storm stills the summer dust and washes the air clean of pollen. The atmosphere seems immediately cleaner and sharper, but there is something else happening as well. Rain stimulates bacteria in the soil to produce a molecule called geosmin or geosmin, depending on how you pronounce your O or your O. Geosmin or geosmin, which we humans are really good at detecting, it says here. The splash of a raindrop releases this into the atmosphere. There really is a smell of summer rain. There you go. Petrichor and geosmin. A bit of myth, a bit of history, a bit of science. You get it all here.
I've got one comment. I love the smell of rain.
Yes.
Me too. I like this. My top smells. Freshly cut grass.
Yeah, can't beat that.
Rain when it's summer and it's hot and humid, and then it just takes a turn, especially when you're on top of the South Downs and it's a little bit drizzly. And then as the day goes on, the smell gets better. That was quite cool. And in the Highlands, that's good fun as well. And then just the smell when you go into a woodland, like, you know, that kind of dingy aroma that goes on.
It's when you kind of, again, this is something we'll be looking at on Saturday, but it's when you come out of the sun, isn't it? You got that really sun beating down on you, and then you go into the wood and the air and the whole atmosphere completely changes. Yeah, checking out some bits and pieces this morning, and we've got an into the woods and then out the woods in a short space. It's going to be really cool. You're right, spot on.
It's good, isn't it?
It is.
It's good.
Absolutely. It's observing and just being aware of what's around you at the moment, at that time.
A lot of the time, though, when you can't smell things, it's because it's a very blustery, windy time. Now, we like Kingsdown, but it does get very windy and blustery. And there are times when you're down there and it's so bitterly cold and so windy, you cannot hear anything other than just your coat flapping against your ears or the waves coming up the breakwaters on the sides. So we've got an example of that from one of our favourite places, being Kingsdown. At dawn this time.
Indeed.
Again, we do like Kingsdown.
Now, there's quite a lot of really bold flowers in this this video. So we're going to be talking a little bit about those afterwards. But we thought we'd just give you a little bit of a challenge to see if you could write down the names of the main flowers in the video. And we're going to talk about them afterwards a little bit. But I'll just give you a clue. There are 6, okay? There's 6 flowers. So, yeah, see how many you can pick out.
Let me just find it. That's the one.
Hope you don't say that colour. do you know, I didn't realise until I watched the final render that I'd managed to get the same clip with Scruffy in it twice. But that was quite entertaining because I had to take that shot about 5 times because every single time I took it, he walked across the front of the camera. And there's a whole different thing between Scruffy being in the shot
and photogenic
and walking past the camera, a little pain. But anyway, so has anybody got any idea what any of those flowers were in the video? This is your chance to shine. I mean, we're going to go through them in a minute anyway, but we just sort of thought if anybody had any idea. Well, one of that. Well,
I thought one of them was a sweet pea.
Yeah, there was a perennial pea was certainly there. Definitely, there was valerian, Viper's bugloss,
purple, pink, yellow.
There was a lot of that.
There was
a lot of that. Definitely. Yeah, Viper's bugloss, pyramidal orchid. We had those on a show a couple of weeks ago, but of course it's a couple of shows ago.
Common kidney vetch as well.
Yeah, and Calvatch. Anyway, we're going to get up the PowerPoint now, and we're going to just go through some of those plants that we saw. So, actually, do you know how I remember the name of this plant? See, this is valerian, but it sounds very, very similar to the Chancellor in Star Wars. Yeah, because he was Chancellor Valorian. You see, you remember that on Coruscant when they, the Parliament, whatever they called themselves, all got together.
Democracy or whatever.
Yes, they were led at the beginning by Chancellor Valorian, and that's very similar. So I always remember these by thinking about Star Wars. So anyway, Ross is going to tell you a little bit about Chancellor Valerian.
Well, valerian itself is native to Europe and Asia, and you'll notice there's a bit of a theme there because if you remember to a few months back now when we drove along one of the local roads by us, and we did the video of all the blackthorn.
Yes.
And we did the video of all of the blackthorn coming into bloom. That's a Europe and Asia based plant. So there's quite a common theme that there's quite a few that you'll find here as well as Asia. You think you've got cherry blossom as well. That's another one that you'll see. And of course the Chinese or the Asian culture, they celebrate the cherry. When a cherry starts to blossom, that's the signs of a good spring and the signs of start of spring as well. So there's a bit of a common theme there that we just have a lot of plants and a lot of trees that are native to both us, Europe and Asia.
It's cool because they really do paint the whole of an area kind of red.
Oh, they sure do. I mean, I remember I believe it would be Last of Samurai when they had the sea of cherry blossoms as they're going along the horses. No, I'd like to go off to that part of the world at some point and just see. Especially, you have to go at spring. I think you've got to go at spring. It has to be spring.
I think you quite a lot of them in roadside verges as well.
I mean, talking of being attracted to a place to go to see. Well, I don't want to go see some cherry blossoms. Well, the valerian itself attracts hoverflies, moths, and butterflies, and their larvae feeds off the plant. Now, it's one of those ones where you've got to think about. You think every plant has its different stem or its different shaped leaves, and you think a stinging nettle's got its hairy stem, and then you think that different trees have got different types of bark. Everything attracts something different. But another thing that's interesting about this is a crude extract can be used as a sedative. So you can take a crude extract, I believe it is from the stem, and then you can use it as a sedative, which was used many, many years ago when they discovered it. And it's still used today in some medicines, which I thought was a little bit interesting because it's sold today in capsules as sleeping pills. So not only is it native to us, Europe and Asia, not only does it attract hoverflies, moths and butterflies, which their larvae then feed off the plant, but we also still use it for some people on a day-to-day basis as a sleeping pill.
It's quite cool, really, isn't it? If you think about, you've got a plant that's been traditionally used to help encourage sleep. And it's kind of like a bit bizarre that these days, with modern medicines and everything else and everything that goes with that, they're actually using a traditional balm, a traditional poultice, to actually put into tablets to help people sleep now. That's quite novel, that. I hope it'll catch on.
Well, next one.
Next one. Yes. So this is, I first came across this plant. This is Viper's Bugloss when I was working in Dungeness with the RSPB. And it literally would paint the whole of Dungeness blue some years, because it really did stand out more than others. And you kind of could almost mistake it for bluebells, except for the fact that it's a kind of different blue and it's the wrong time of year. But they're quite common in places where there's not seriously nutrient rich. As you say, if you think about Dungeness, it's all pebbles and it's kind of sandy and rough, not that good soil, which drains really quickly as well. But where you get them, they're really kind of local, which is pretty special. But I mean, to a certain extent, they're fairly easy to identify because they're one of the few really, really blue flowers that we get at this time of year. Now, we're never entirely sure why they're called Viper's Bugloss. It could be because of the patterning on the stem. It could be because the stamen in the flower are a bit like a forked tongue of a snake. But we're not entirely sure. I mean, I always used to try and remember the name by saying it was a snake that had lost its flies. Yeah, you think Viper's bug lost its bugs, you see. But it's quite a cool plant, and it's funny where they're actually in sheltered spots. They're about twice the height of the places where they're in very exposed places. So you kind of like got to get a hold of it, because it really does make a difference, because it grows mostly on beaches, and they tend to be windy places. I mean, Dungeness had kind of two kinds of weather, blowing a gale,
Blowing a hoolie.
yeah, or you get baked to a crisp. So it's got to be able to deal with both of those, which doesn't allow quite the same amount of growth. But when you actually see it in a place which is sheltered, and you do sometimes see it inland, it tends to be twice as big. But it's quite a striking plant, and one I suggest, yes, keeping your eyes out for, really.
Going back a second to talking about plants for medicine, another plant that is still in used is digitalis and foxglove for heart conditions.
That's it. You have to be careful with them because it's poisonous, isn't it?
I believe so.
Yes, if you eat too much of them, they'll do that. So I suppose it's like most drugs, isn't it? If you use them in the right dose and the right quantities, they're a real benefit. If you use them in too much, they become a bit of a hazard. I think that's the same for just about every drug.
Can you spell the blue flower, please? I'm guessing that's Viper's Bugloss.
Yeah, if you just think Vipers is in the snake with an S on the end, and then bug, B-U-G, and then loss, L-O-S-S. So it's exactly the way that you just take those three words: Vipers, Bugloss, just think bug, loss.
Now, on to the next one.
On to the next one.
Pyramidal orchids. Now, these flower in June and July, so that's the best time of year to see them. So normally you've got a lot of plants that start to come out and will do their turn during the spring, whereas this comes out solely for those kind of two normally hotter months, and then we kind of get the rain of summer in August, although it's been a little bit topsy-turvy so far this year.
Well, the weather's been confused this year.
It has. It's been very confused this year. But that's the best time to see it, June and July. Each plant can have up to 100 flowers. So you imagine you've got your stem, and then on that stem, going off the top, you can literally have 100 flowers. Can you imagine that you've gone through your life, and then you decide that it's that time in your life when you want to get your first family pet, and you get your family pet, and then you decide that you want 99 more. Yeah, that's probably what that stem feels like. But is orchid seeds do not store enough food to grow on their own. They team up with a mat-forming fungus in the soil, which helps them grow. And that is also found in a lot of areas with disturbed soil. So, for example, like Kingsdown, where the cliff face has fallen down and all the chalk has come down and has disturbed the soil, has overturned it, has churned it up, has made it into different types of piles, then everything is turned over and that fungus can mix in, and that's how these grow.
So it's does anybody remember we had pyramidal orchids in the program 2 or 3 programs ago? Anyone remember exactly what it is about an orchid that actually makes it an orchid? Bet they don't. Bet they don't. Mind you, I had to check.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
There you go. No. It's funny. It's a bit like, I don't know, red cars. If you buy a red car, well, that's shut up. Why are they an orchid? They're an orchid because they've got male and female parts are in the same flower. Is pretty much it. Whereas most flowers kind of like they're separate, or they've got to be combined together. But it's the fact that they're in the same. But no, I've seen a lot of these just lately, and I don't know whether it's because all of a sudden there's more of them than there used to be, or whether it's because I know what they are. A bit like, as I say, you know, when you buy a red car and all of a sudden you see all these red cars on the road that you never saw before, for no other reason than because you're looking for them. But there's no doubt about it. They are pretty spectacular flowers, and there does seem to be rather a lot just lately. So, yeah, keep your eyes out for pyramidal orchids. Beautiful.
And this is perennial peas.
Indeed.
It's your turn, my friend.
Is it my turn? Okay,
It is
right,
your
yes,
turn.
it is my turn. Well, again, another pinky purple flower that's kind of quite prominent at the moment. And they are kind of generally just one season. They kind of grow up, give you the flower, and then funny enough, they've got these big seed pods, which quite often people kind of find quite popular for eating. I mean, it's not the kind of like the real kind of pea crop that we tend to harvest, the perennial pea, but they're the ones we get wild, which is where it kind of came from. And then the plant completely dies. So it's the seeds that are then left for next year. So they're very definitely an annual plant. I mean, we get them in our garden from occasionally. And when we first put in our pergola, we had a run of them all the way down the side because they gave us a really quick, explosive colour. But they then died off and they went off. But they're very popular with butterflies and with insects. So we like them for that because, face it, anything that brings life into our life, as far as I'm concerned, is a good thing. So yeah, perennial peas out there now, putting on a fantastic show. Another one to go and look for and enjoy, because there is so much colour out there right now, which is dead cool. Moving swiftly onwards.
Next one is common kidney vetch. Now, this flowers June till September, so it's another late bloomer, if you'd like to say it that way. But this one lasts a little bit longer. So unlike the orchids, which they only flower for 2 months, this one decides that it wants to flower for 3 to 4 months. Obviously, depending on where it grows, the weather, and obviously that's all changing. So it grows for that amount of time. It's used traditionally by herbalists to reduce swelling, heal wounds, and treat kidney problems. Well, you wouldn't have thought it treated kidney problems from the name at all, would you? So it's a common kidney vetch. I think that's quite a fitting name.
It is.
But each flower has its own calyx, which gives it that woolly appearance. So if you look for common kidney vetch and you find it, have a look at the whole plant itself. And when you have a look around through the stem and the leaves and the petals and the flower, you'll notice it's just got this kind of fuzz about it. This kind of odd, almost aura of fuzz. Just have a look. Just next time you're outside, have a look and see if you can spot it.
It is. If you go back to the video where the kidney vetch was, it was a vast, almost kind of prairie-like feel to it, which was absolutely fantastic. But yeah, it's funny. Everything has an aura. Just that we can't always see it.
And on to the next one.
Good old cow vetch. There's a lot of this around. I saw, again, I was out prepping the walk for Saturday this morning, and there's a lot of cow vetch out there at the moment. It's another gloriously kind of almost mauve kind of colour, and I just think it looks beautiful. Stands out, especially against all the kind of yellow and purple that most of the flowers are giving us at the moment. But I just love it as a flower. God, what was that? So I'm just checking the notes here. It's another one. It's a kind of part of the pea family. It has pods. So again, get out, have a look. And you can tell that if you look at the leaves, they're kind of like multi-fingered, very kind of pea-like. So
They are indeed.
They are indeed. So that's rounds off our Dawn Story section of the flowers down on Kingsdown Beach. But it was funny. There are some mornings, I mean, every morning's different, but there are some mornings when you're just almost called to places. Wasn't planning to go to Kingsdown that morning. It was just, I actually had some time. I didn't have any breakfast meetings or anything else. And it was like various different places I could have gone, but back to Kingsdown, and it was just glorious. It's a shame really that the wind was southerly. Otherwise it would have been blowing the waves up against the concrete ramparts. And that is quite dramatic down there sometimes, and the waves just crash across and come over the top. But it was one of the reasons why we had that section in the video where it just knocked off all the sound and everything else and just gave you a flavour of the power of the wind that was rushing through.
If you are fortunate to ever end up in Kingsdown and you get the opportunity when it's not too windy and it's nice and sunny, to get out on a kayak or a boat or a paddleboard and actually get out in the water and go out far enough that you can still depict everything that's in the cliff face, the top and all the bushes and the bottom of the rifle range. And when you're out there, just take a minute and just look at everything from the other side, because you've got that different perspective. And I've never seen it from that side until last summer when I went kayaking there. Very fortunate that the tide was in, there was no wind, so it was just complete flat sea. And we went out kayaking and just stopped in the water and just looked. And it's just this entirely different perception to how you would normally see everything. I mean, yes, you can go out there when the tide's out and you can walk along, but it's a different place because the water is where it would be when you'll be walking along, which I think is, if you get a chance, go. It's incredible.
It is. Well, ultimately, I mean, the world is different from water.
It is.
Absolutely. There's a chapter about that in my next book, but we'll tell you more about that later.
One comment, really interesting about the plant. Thank you. Well, you're more than welcome.
Excellent. We're really chuffed about that. So on that moment of praise and glory, before we need bigger hats, we're going to crack on. The main focus for this show is we thought it'd be really cool to go into the city of Canterbury and find some of the less urban places, if you like. We weren't expecting to get quite as wet as we did, but you know what? Because we are the soldiers that we are, we carried on in the rain, and we had a great time. Actually,
we did. There's lovely food as well.
We had some great food, which I mean, we got turned out at one place, which
we did.
Went to the second place, and it was really, really cool. So anyway, this is our introductory video to Canterbury. So,
enjoy.
Hello, Simon and Ross here. You can probably tell we're in Canterbury. We thought it would be really cool to come into the city, into our most important of historical cities, and go and hunt for some of the green spaces that we can find in our towns and cities, because they're all there if you look. Some of them are obvious and some of them are more hidden. So we're going to have a look here in the Dane John and St Mildred's Church. We're going to discover a little bit about the Greyfriars, and we're probably going to have a look at Westgate Gardens, the Tower House. Got married there, by the way. And we're probably even going to go and have a look at Hambrook Meadows. So come along and join us.
We'll see you shortly.
So we're in Dane John Gardens in Canterbury. Now Canterbury has been a place of pilgrimage since around about the 7th century AD. Became very popular almost after the murder of Thomas a Becket. That helped found the Pilgrim's Way. People would make their way to Canterbury to pay their respects at the cathedral. And as a result of being so important, they actually built walls to defend the place from attack. But if you actually look around, you'll realise that Canterbury is actually built in a dip. And many of our major and most important towns are actually built on the top of hills to give you that vantage point. But this is because originally Canterbury was on the mouth of the Stour. And it also joined with the Wanson Canal, which separated the island of Thanet. And as, if you like, the coast has moved through time, so therefore Canterbury has appeared to be in a dip, which it is. But originally it was on the mouth of the Stour.
Now the park itself has been dating back to 1551, but was rejuvenated by the council in 1999 with £1 million from the Heritage Trust Fund. There is the monument within the park, which is there for Alderman James Simmons, and there's also the wall with the main road outside, which you'll be able to hear now. Now, when this was built and erected, should we say, the wall and the lime trees are there to soak up the noise of the roads, because when we're up here you can hear the road noise really well, but when we're down the bottom we'll show you the difference. Come down to the bottom of Dane John, you can only hear the water feature and you get the occasional bit of road noise, but the walls and the mounds of soil that have been built up, especially as well as the lime trees, blocks all, if not most, of the road noise.
Stop like that. Go. Did anybody notice the accidental pedestrians posing? Seem to get themselves in just about every shot.
I wonder who that was.
Absolutely. It's amazing. Wait up. That's it. Sorry, we just had a pop-up come up.
Oh, hello. Hang on.
Yeah, we're back again. That's it. Then you'll have a good dollop of IT. It's funny, it's one of those places. My grandmother lived in Canterbury, and I used to go and stay with her when I was a child on a regular basis. And we used to walk through the Dane John all the time. it's almost one of those. I mean, it has changed. I mean, one of the things we noticed when we went, the maze has gone. It's not there. You can't get lost in the maze anymore. It's just one of those places that just figures in my memories since I was a kid. Um,
Yeah, I've been to Canterbury for multiple different reasons. That whether that be nights out, whether that be football matches, when I was in school, whether that be shopping trips, or whether it just be a day out. And Dane John just seems to be the one place. No matter what I'm doing in Canterbury, where I'm going in Canterbury, it always seems to be the place that I'll go through, because of course Canterbury Station is the other side, and there's the bridge that goes over that connects Dane John and the train station together pretty much. And every time we used to go to Canterbury with my friends, we always used to take the bridge. We go to Canterbury East and we walk through Dane John all the time, and it is just a really nice place to relax, especially when it's hot, and you can sit out there. And there is a little mobile cafe as well, and you can get a drink and a little bite to eat, and just enjoy being outside in the city.
there's, I mean, you can actually see it. When my grandmother used to live, you can actually see it from the road. You actually see, see the tower itself. So that was pretty cool too. So yeah, pretty awesome. But anyway, we wanted to tell you a bit more about the lime trees.
We did.
So have we got a picture of lime trees, or are we just going to waffle?
We're going to waffle.
We're going to waffle. Okie dokie.
Well, lime trees themselves are actually hermaphrodites. Now, does anyone know? I mean, does anyone know what hermaphrodite means?
I know what hermaphrodite means.
What does it mean?
Snails are hermaphrodites.
There's plants that are hermaphrodites.
Yes. It's not so common though in animals.
Asexual. You would be correct.
They have both. They have both.
They have both male and female reproductive parts that are contained within one flower.
Yeah. No, I mean snails obviously aren't flowers, but
the flowers of a lime tree are whitey yellow, with 5 petals and hanging clusters of 2 to 5 once pollinated.
Incidentally, actually, snails can't mate with themselves. They still need to have another snail. They can just be whichever one they want to be.
Interesting. Now, once pollinated by insects, the flower develops into a round, oval, slightly ribbed fruit with a pointed tip. But what's great about lime trees is they are very versatile, and they're also very good at pretty much growing wherever you want them to grow when you put them there. And there's the one thing with Dane John is you'll notice that the lime trees are very formal. In the fact that they're all in lines, they've all got roughly the same gap between them, which means we've planted them there. And they also contribute so much to stopping the road noise, because they grow so kind of thick with their leaves and flowers. They almost act like a kind of a sound muffler, and they just take away more and more of the traffic noise and more of the noises going on around.
We've actually got some in the village. We've got a couple. There's one in our village green, and there's a massive one behind the Three Horseshoes pub. They've got the leaves are like the shapes of hearts in packs of playing cards, and they're quite massive. They're really big leaves. They can also be a bit sticky, but one of the things that's really good about them is that they're really good for coppicing. And if you actually look at any lime tree, one of the things that helps to identify it is that there's growth coming from the bottom the entire time. I mean, the one on the playing field at the moment is spread halfway across the footpath that comes out. Every now and then somebody, I mean, I've done it myself a couple of times, actually has to go back and cut the plant back, because there's so much leaf and foliage coming from the base. So they're kind of almost doing that coppicing thing for you without taking out the main trunk. But it's one of the features of lime.
But also the lime trees, they're also heavily associated in other cultures with fertility. So in France and Switzerland, limes are a symbol of liberty, and the trees were planted to commemorate battles. So they're not, it comes back to what we were saying earlier, where a lot of plants and trees have all got their piece of history. I mean, not quite earlier, when we were talking about in a couple of shows back, when we did the guided walk, when we were talking about yew trees with the battles of Agincourt and Cressy, and how if it wasn't for those,
we're getting onto that again in a minute. Stay off them.
We would have
Stay off them.
But it also helps because the lime tree as well, The wood doesn't warp, and it's still used to make sounding boards and piano keys, as well as some other kind of kitchen utensils and bowls and plates and things like that as well. It's even used Morris dancing sticks. Now we talk about blackthorns being used in Japanese culture as potentially as walking sticks, and they also used them as well when they were training people to become samurais. Well, the lime tree is associated with Morris dancing, which part of me still wants to see when everyone walks out onto a rugby pitch. They did national anthems and everyone starts Morris dancing whilst everyone else is doing a haka. I think that'd be quite fun.
I think it would be brilliant. I mean, if the All Blacks can do the haka, I think our lads should go out and do Morris dancing. Definitely.
I think that'd be a good start.
It would. I mean, it doesn't have quite the same oomph, but the basic origins are very, very similar. It's about, getting rid of all the bad spirits. So, yeah, why not? Why not? You're going to manage to get samurai into every section of the show.
Potentially.
A bit like that. Set him a challenge. We'll go for it.
I'll see what I can do.
After all, talking of samurai, just another tenuous link here. I actually did almost brush shoulders with a Hollywood A-lister.
The last of the samurai.
Who was he was in he was the last samurai. Do you know anybody reckon they know who that was?
Short bloke. He also used to fly fighter jets as well.
Yes, indeed. I was almost rubbing shoulders with Mr. Tom Cruise. He was there on Sunday at the Festival of Speed. He's a bit of a petrol head, so cool. So samurais, Top Gun, Festival of Speed. Oh.
TC.
Yes, it. So we're off then again. Shall we crack on to Canterbury video 2?
I think we should.
We should indeed. St Mildred's, 3 Cities Park, and a bit about the Grey Friars. So enjoy. This behind me is the Church of St Mildred in St Mildred's Quarter in Canterbury. It's an old Anglo-Saxon church. It was actually consecrated before the Domesday Book, before William the Conqueror invaded back in 1066. That makes it really cool. When you're in churchyards though, I'd always suggest have a look for yew trees, such as we've got here. Big old yew tree. Churchyards are fantastic places to hunt out yew trees because yew trees last for hundreds and hundreds of years. They're an amazing part of our history, but because in churchyards they don't tend to get in anybody's way or upset anybody, they tend to get left to grow and do their thing. It's an amazing tree. I said before, if we hadn't had yew trees, we wouldn't have had longbows. If we hadn't had longbows, we wouldn't have done the battles of Crécy and Agincourt, and we may well be ruled by the French. And we wouldn't want that now, would we? So, take on board the fact that this is an Anglo-Saxon church which makes it over 1,000 years old. This is a yew tree, probably not quite as old, but just as much history. It's the last tree in the Celtic alphabet. Come and find this place when you next visit Canterbury. So, churchyards are really cool. Not just for churches, not just for yew trees, but for the other trees that you can find here as well. And if you have a look, there's a tulip tree, which is cool. Sycamore, a relatively recent invader. Oak trees, magnificent big hardwoods that we think of as English. The ships that we beat the Armada with were built of oak. Then here, there's a massive hornbeam. Again, hornbeam, hawthorn. Hawthorn is a slow growing tree too. And this one, as you can see, is absolutely massive, huge. So when you come into churchyards, just spare a thought for those magnificent trees that we share our lives with. Another sycamore. But have you ever seen a sycamore with a bark quite like this one? Absolutely amazing, really rough. So it's a pretty old sycamore, which again is fantastic. Just enjoy the ambience of a churchyard. Because no matter what they do with them, they just feel special. So behind me is the only surviving building from the Greyfriars Priory that was built in 1267. It's a beautiful little church nowadays. It still holds services, and when you can get into the Greyfriars Gardens, it's a beautiful, calm, relaxing place. It's a meadow and it's just a great place to be. Unfortunately it's shut at the moment, but it's interesting because the Greyfriars were the Franciscan monks, and they'd always avoided having property or possessions. To be a Franciscan monk involved a vow of poverty, and they'd only ever have what people would actually give them to survive. Very, very different from the Black Friars, which also had monasteries in Canterbury. The Black Friars were, if you like, they'd given their allegiance or their mark of devotion to St. Benedict. And the Benedictines were very much about learning and about working. So they would produce a vast amount of produce. Beer was one of theirs, but a very clear difference. But it's the one remaining piece from Greyfriars Church or monastery, which was built in 1267. Fantastic. Thank you. So this is Canterbury Three Cities Garden. It's just off Best Street. It's formerly the churchyard of All Saints Church, built in approximately the 12th century. The church itself was demolished in 1828. They built a very strange looking building and was used up until 1938, when it was also demolished. But it's a strange little square of quiet in the middle of a busy, bustling city centre. There is, to my left, a busy cafe. There was a blackbird just now singing his heart out to my right. 50 yards to my right is Canterbury High Street. But here we're calm, full of trees, a little oasis in a busy, bustling city centre. If you look carefully, you can see in the water two figures. They're concrete and glass. They were installed in 2008 and they are called Alluvia. They're one of the first sculptures by Jason de Care Louves. It's cool, but I wonder how many times you've walked over Westgate Towers and not actually clocked them. Now if you're not sure where, if I raise the camera, you can get some idea of the view from here when you look up. Yeah, it's a shame we can't get into Greyfriars Gardens now. I actually got in probably 2 years ago. I went there with Gillian, and we spent quite a while just sat outside the church. They think that the church that is used now was originally the guest house, part of the monastery, but it is a little bit kind of strange because with the Franciscans not looking to have property, not looking to have possessions, and it just came a point that they needed to have a base, if you like, and the fact that that monastery was actually built while St. Francis was still alive, um, just kind of goes to show how thoughts and concepts can change due to the needs of the situation that you're actually in at the moment. But it's and even just the difference between two, if you like, within that, they all have based in a similar religious philosophy, but just go about it in a completely different way, which is really cool. And the other thing is the fellow who put in the two figures in the River Stour by Westgate Bridge. His name was not De Cairns Pluvies, as I said. I was having a brain out moment. We did that 4 times before I even got that far. His name was Cairns Taylor. So, but anyway, go down and have a look, because it's funny, when we actually went the first time we saw them, we actually knew they were there was a bloke in the water actually clearing all of the watercress and the buttercups from that area, because as you can see, there's a vast amount of vegetation in the water. If you didn't actively go in there and remove it, you'd never see the sculptures because they would just be immersed in vegetation. So yeah, that was cool. And the Three Cities Garden, there's actually two other cities it's twinned with. And, I really should have written down where it was. But if you want to go and have a look, it's behind, that's it. Old age is kicking in again. Coffee shop on the corner, which is by the old hospital in on the high street.
It's the bottom end of the high street, or bottom middle.
Is it Patisserie Valkyrie or
something like that?
Patisserie, yeah, Valkyrie. It's the one on the corner there.
It's by the opposite the Canterbury Town Help Centre, or like Tourist Information Centre. It's just down the road from there. So, and it's all you got to do is walk down the high street from the new bit, going down towards the old area with the Westgate Towers, and just turn right, and it's down there.
But it's it's funny when you think about it. I mean, the blackbird was in there doing its thing. The blackbirds, most of our wildlife doesn't do. I'm not coming in here. It's a town. You can still find an awful lot of the creatures that you would find outside in towns, still carrying on, still singing, despite whatever noise we might be making. They're still doing their level best to live their lives the way that they were meant to. It's just that sometimes they have to really battle because we can be noisy as a species, but blackbird didn't seem to mind.
Can you put the locations in Canterbury in the Facebook group, please? Of course we can. We'll sort that out for you, and we'll get a map uploaded with the different locations on it.
That's cool. When we do our level best, we had some issues with the Zoom load and actually getting it onto YouTube and getting it out last time, and so we'll do our level best to try and get this one out a little bit quicker. So yes.
We are now at the halfway point of the 2-hour show.
Spectacular.
2-hour extravaganza.
Yes.
And we'd just like to ask as well if you would like to have a 5-10 minute
2 or 3 minute. A brief comfort break.
A brief comfort break just to use the toilet, get a drink. And I would also say get a pen and a pad, because we are about to do a springtime overlook quiz.
There's a quiz involved, and 1 or 2 other important dates for you and things as well. So
if you'd like to take just a couple of minutes now, and then we can carry on in a minute. So I'm going to go get them a drink.
Righty ho.
We will resume in a minute.
Indeed.
Oh, do you like another drink, sir?
No, I've been nursing it. I'd actually just like to say there's no beer in here. Blackcurrant. Oh. See, it's been a kind of just how quickly you kind of get out of the habit of Thursday evening shows, and then how kind of they sneak up on you. But because the next one, I think the next one will have some Scotland in it, actually. So, did anyone manage to get out in the sun today? God, I would have to say, actually, I can't read the chat. My chat reader has departed, but he'll be back in a minute. But if anyone wants to unmute themselves for a couple of moments and got anything to contribute, then feel free. So we'll carry on. Normal service will be resumed shortly. Oh, he's back.
Of course, like an ad break.
It is. Yeah, we should have filmed some adverts.
Sure, we can arrange that.
I could have put the Oxley Bottom one on.
You could have. You could have.
Could have done. Never mind. Anyway.
When are you going to Scotland? Can't unmute, though.
Oh,
That's a question that's come up.
Oh, we're going to I'm going to Scotland on the 1st. We're off, and we're on the 1st until the 14th, I think. So, and then the following Thursday will be the next show. So I'm sure that there will be some Scottish element, Scottish flavour to the next show.
Yeah, and I'm off for a weekend away in November, a long weekend. Not entirely sure where we're going. We only decided today that we were going to go. So there'll be some form of content from wherever I end up going, I'm sure, over those couple of days that I'll be away.
Indeed.
But yeah. Should we crack on? I'm sure everyone has returned.
Yes.
Oh, turns out I'm 18% Scottish. Who knew?
Who's that?
Chris.
Ah. That would be, yes, a Verbiest name then, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Mac Verbo.
It'd be Muck Verbo, wouldn't it? Mac's
You get Mac and Muck.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Dutch, apparently.
Mac Dutch.
And Verbiest. Dutch.
Ah.
Anyway, right. I'm sure everyone has had a minute to go and relieve themselves.
Right then. Canterbury 3, Toddler's Cove, Chalk Rivers, Moorhens, and Banded Demoiselles.
Yes. So, part 3. If I can read. I can't seem to read right now.
Is it
this one?
That one.
That is that one. Cool. You would have thought by the age of 21 I would have worked out how to read.
So the river you can see behind me is the Great Stour. The Stour actually divides into two as it goes through Canterbury, the Great Stour and the Lower Stour. Now this is a chalk stream and they're kind of quite rare, and the section through Kent is quite special. It's one of the biggest, and it makes the Stour the largest river of its kind in Kent, which is pretty cool. Typically you've got a gravel bottom and you've got really, really clear water, and that makes it really special for large amounts of wildlife, in particular the banded demoiselle, which you can actually see in summer in large amounts through this river, which is absolutely fantastic.
We've only been given that one clip.
I'll tell you what, nip back into we'll talk for a moment, nip back into the store, and we'll see if what's happened, because that wasn't part of the plan. I'll tell you a little bit about banded demoiselles whilst Ross is seeing where if he can hunt and dig out the actual video, because they are the most amazing insect. The damselflies up here are fantastic, but the banded demoiselles, as you'll see shortly, actually have black spots on the wings. Doesn't look amazingly fantastic when they're stationary, but when they fly, it really does make them look spectacularly beautiful, because there's no other flying insect that's got these big black patches. So that's really, really cool. And I mean, because of the nature of the Stour, which we actually we get a number of them in the summer, especially if you like in the section between Fordwich Fordwich and Grove Ferry, which is one of the reasons why it's so fantastic to actually go and walk there. But also you can hire a canoe. There's a company called Canoe Wild, and they're really reasonably priced, but to just sail down the river and see these insects is amazing. But it's weird, they're almost impossible to film when they're flying around doing their thing. Believe me, I've tried. And if you then go to YouTube and try and find them, there's very little footage again, because they are just really, really difficult. But they're absolutely fantastic. Love them to pieces. Let's try and catch this video up again, and we'll tell you a little bit more about damselflies after this video. So, attempt 2, here we go. Now, if you look really carefully, you can see here why moorhens have really, really big feet, because it's really, really handy for walking around in the river on all the vegetation that's just below the surface. So you can walk around, you can have a good old munch. As you can see here, it's a juvenile moorhen, youngster. Making full use of big feet and floating vegetation. How cool is that? Not actually swimming, but actually walking. Now, if you look really carefully, you can see here why more cool is that. Playground. Interestingly enough, the area between the Greater and the Lower Stour, where it split, was actually called and known as Bingley Island, and the land around was Bingley Meadows. Mostly interesting because in 1545, the Archbishop of Canterbury and the choir of Christ Church, they fell out and had a right old barney over the place. It's funny how these religious folk can get very upset over land matters. But today, Toddler's Cove, the area has become, if you like, a big playground for families and their children. And was also formerly for a while part of the old tannery site. It's amazing the history you can dig up when you go nosing. So the river you can see behind me is the Great Stour. The Stour actually divides into two as it goes through Canterbury, the Great Stour and the Lower Stour. Now, this is a chalk stream, and they're kind of quite rare. And the section through Kent is quite special. It's one of the biggest, and it makes the Stour the largest river of its kind in Kent, which is pretty cool. Typically, you've got a gravel bottom, and you've got really, really clear water. And that makes it really special for large amounts of wildlife, in particular the banded demoiselle, which you can actually see in summer in large amounts through this river, which is absolutely fantastic. Damselflies, banded demoiselle damselflies at that. The most amazingly beautiful damselflies. Very hard to film because they're always on the go. These two are mating. Now, on the assumption that fairies didn't exist, I think that probably these other little creatures are where those stories came from, because when they start flying, they look just like we imagine fairies might look like. So we just move around a little bit carefully here, you then will get a better view of them. How is about this? They are gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And you know what? It's absolutely unreal to actually capture this on film for you. This is beautiful. You see, I love damselflies and I love dragonflies because they have the most unreal life cycle. You know, this is pretty much the last thing as adults that they will do. And the male's gone. Just left the female there now. He's mated. But as adults, they pretty much only have one responsibility, and that is to reproduce. Damselflies and dragonflies are, when she's finished, she's going to go back to the water and she'll lay her eggs. When she lays her eggs, they will drift off in the running water. Banded demoiselles need that running water. They stay in the water, and she's gone, for 6 months or so, until they turn to adults. And then they come out, and literally they have one purpose in mind. That is reproduction, survival of the species. And it's such an amazing thought that we get pleasure from them doing what they do. Naturally.
Couple of questions for you.
Couple of questions.
Come in the chat. Now, moorhens, can they swim or only walk on water?
They can swim, but because their feet are not webbed, they're not adapted for it the same way that ducks and geese are. But you know, they don't tend to go in the open water, obviously, as much as ducks and things do, and you find them most commonly on the edges where they can walk around and do their thing. But it was just so cool when we were there. You could actually see these dirty, great, huge feet, because they are massive, the feet of moorhens and coots as well, which they actually use for marching about, because it just spreads the weight across really, really well. And you actually see them walking across lily pads and things, as well as just through the river weed, as you saw there.
The next question, is this class a porn fly film?
I don't know about porn. Isn't it weird though, the fact that, David Attenborough has made a fortune out of getting people to film animals bonking, and
but nice way to put it. Well, I actually have a challenge for you. If you think that you can capture some footage of a banded demoiselle that doesn't involve reproduction, and be good footage where you can depict what they are without them mating, then there's a challenge.
Or even come to that, just we don't mind animals mating, just not people.
Yeah. Let's
get this.
It
is amazing. I mean, the life cycle of, dragonflies and damselflies is absolutely bizarre. It's more kind of different and otherworldly than most of the things you'll see in a sci-fi movie, except maybe if you look at the Alien movies, they had a pretty bizarre life cycle there as well. But if you think that the adult, as you've just seen, the female will go back and they'll lay their eggs into the water. Most damselflies just literally deposit them into the water. They quite often need the male to stay around because they're not heavy enough to actually push the female's abdomen through the water on her own. That's called ovipositing. But then they'll leave, the eggs will then, say, eventually fall to the bottom of the water and stick to something. Then the eggs will hatch and you'll get the larvae come out. Now, the larvae of both damselfly and dragonflies, they're just eating machines, pretty much. But unlike us, if you like, they've got an exoskeleton. The outside of the body is a skeleton, and all the parts and all the organs are all kind of moving around doing their own thing on the inside. And what they have to do, because the skeleton is a fixed size, it doesn't grow with the animal, with the insect. They actually grow a new one on the inside. And as it hardens, it expands, and they then leave the old one behind. And again, depending on the species and depending on damselfly and dragonfly, they'll do that anything up to kind of 5, 6, 7 times until you get to the last time when actually what comes out is the adult, which is obviously quite dramatically different to the larva, because obviously the larva gets all its oxygen from water, the adult gets it from the air. Obviously the adult has got wings, and as you can see there with the damselflies, these banded damselflies, they have all of them have the most beautiful patterns, but those dark round patches on the wings of the banded damselfly, when you see them flying, it's just one of the most amazing natural creations, and they're beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And the colors that you get within those species of insect are just unlike anything we can really seriously create. Just one of those natural wonders. But they come out, and as I say, the adults have got pretty much one thing on mind. Some of the insects don't even have mouth parts, can't even feed. You know, they might have spent a winter in the water as an egg and then hatched and spent a season eating. But they come out with one thing on their mind, which is why if you find around a pond, and I mean, we've had it a couple of times, dying adults around your pond, that's actually a really, really good sign, because that means that they put their eggs in the water in your pond, and next year you're going to get damselflies or dragonflies. You're not going to get the banded demoiselle because they need running water. So unless you've got a massive garden and a really big river, that's not going to happen. But you can get damselflies and you can get dragonflies in your garden. You've just got to take that chance. But they are, I mean, I go overboard sometimes, but when you actually look at them closely, they are absolutely beautiful. You run out of superlatives to say.
It always seems to be away with a lot of things, doesn't it?
Well, why not? Absolutely, why not?
But now, moorhens. Now, moorhens in this country, we currently have. Well, that's this country, including Scotland, Wales, Ireland. We currently have 270,000 breeding pairs, which is fairly high, but not as high as it could or potentially should be. In comparison, for example, jackdaws, they have 1.4 million breeding pairs. So it's it's good for moorhens, but in comparison to everything else, it's not quite as high as it could be.
It's probably relative to the amount of available habitat, though, as well. Because
exactly,
you know, jackdaws can survive anywhere, whereas if you're a moorhen, you've got to have water, and you've got to have water that's got vegetation in it that you can walk around on. I guess.
Exactly, yeah. It was recently discovered that there are two breeds of moorhen now. So you've got the common and the lesser. Now, this was actually discovered. It was fairly recent. It's been in the last kind of 20 years, and they discovered that there's enough distinctive and distinguishable features between the common and the lesser that they are actually two variants of the same species, meaning that there actually are two types of moorhen that live in the UK. Now, I can't tell you exactly off the top of my head what the two differences are. I know one of them has the white notchings on the wings, and the other doesn't quite have the same amount of white notchings. But it's interesting. Look it up. I found quite an interesting article on it, and it actually talks you through kind of the whole process and how they kind of realised that there is actually two species now of moorhen.
It's funny actually, because to actually classify and give a name to all of our plants and animals, we use the Linnaean system, which was developed by a fellow called Linnaeus, funnily enough. And I think he was 16th, 17th century. I'm not 100% sure. But it's part of the fact that something about us humans, we like to give everything a name, and we like to classify everything and work out what it is. And within that kind of like scientific community of naming all of our friends that we share our world with, there are two kinds of people. There are splitters and there are lumpers. That's quite the genuine terminology. That's what I was taught when I was at Christchurch doing my degree. Splitters and lumpers. Splitters, as you might suspect, are the people who want to split everything into separate species and get as many species as possible and have all of the minutiae of differences categorized so that you've got, and you can end up with a vast array of different creatures with very little differences between them. And then you get the lumpers, and as the name might suggest, they want to lump everything together. So if you like, you get one body of people that say, right, we've got 2 species of moorhen. Whoa, look at that. There's enough there to say that this one is this one and this bird is this one, and we found these characters and whatever else. But you're still going to get another faction that are going to go, don't be so bloody silly. Just lump them all together. They're all moorhens. They're very, it's like some people will tell you that there's a European robin and an English robin. And they will tell you they can split them apart because they have a slightly different colour redbreast. But most people will go, don't be daft. They're robins. So just thought I'd trot that one in there. It wasn't in the agenda, but
interesting.
That's the nature of these shows. Sometimes you remember something you didn't realise that you knew.
Well, moving on from that interesting talk, should we say? Interesting. To
aside.
I didn't know that.
Little aside.
Side quest.
Yeah, splitters and lumpers.
Well, I hope you all managed to get your pen and paper, or pencil and paper, whilst we had a quick break. Because it is now time for the kind of, it's a little bit delayed now, but the spring quiz. It seems we like to just do a short little quiz at the end of every season, just to see what you've picked up on from us and from what you know already. So I'll give you all a second to prepare, and then we will get underway. There's 5 questions, no cheating.
There's 5 answers as well.
5 questions, 5 answers. There is a question which there is more than one right answer, and we will judge those accordingly, or we'll give you what we thought of.
We can see how many people remember the 6 plants in that first video.
We can.
We should.
So, I hope you're all ready, because it's time to read the questions. So, question 1. On average, how many clutches does a sparrow have each breeding season?
I got this one wrong earlier.
And we've covered this in a show. It's probably with the sparrows that were nesting in our own back garden when we did the segment on those. Now then, question 2. What is the first day of spring called? We did do this, I think, right at the start of spring. So a little while ago. I think we also did it as well, probably back at the end of last year when we looked at the wheel of the year. Just a little hint there for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair that probably our next show won't be that far off Lammas.
That's true. It won't be. Yeah, because it will be coming towards the end of August by then, won't it?
Yeah, it'll be middle of August, so yeah.
Oh, that's scary.
We'll be somewhere near. Yeah, Lammas.
Ooh. Well, question 3. What does equinox mean?
That reminds me of Highlander. What does incompetent mean?
Better to burn out and to fade away.
What does baffled mean? Sorry.
Off track again.
Yeah, a bit of an anorak when it comes to some movies.
Yeah, but when it comes to song lyrics, useless.
Useless.
Question 4. What is the name of the spring flower that grows in woodlands? Now, there are multiple ones, so we will list off a few.
But there's 2 main ones we got in mind.
But there's 2 main ones that we thought of, and if you have either of those, then we'll give you a point. But if there is another one that you have and you want to question it, then please put it in the chat, and we will discuss as adjudicators.
We'll put it to committee,
and we will see if we think it's an adequate answer.
Yeah.
And the final question: what is Imbolc?
I got this one right.
Now, if there's any questions you'd like repeated, please let us know now in the chat before we run through the answers.
Fat Imbolc, sometimes called Ostara.
Can you repeat number 5? Number 5, what is Imbolc? That's IMBOLC.
And it's also known as Ostara.
I think that is all of the repeats. So we'll
Right
give
then.
everyone a second and then we will
Hmm.
go through the answers.
Actually, no, star as a spring equinox. Shut up, Simon. Waffling again.
So the answer for number one,
Put
on
it in the
average,
chat.
how many clutches does a sparrow have each breeding season? Does anyone know? 3 clutches? Anyone else? 4 clutches? Well, the correct answer is 4. As on average, 4 clutches per season, should we say. Number 2, what is the first day of spring called? Anyone have any idea? Spring equinox is absolutely right.
This.
Now, I'm going to be picky. You have to have put spring equinox to get the point for that being a correct answer.
Because there's also an autumn equinox.
I'm sorry. It's there. There is a
What's he put?
subface.
Ah,
Question number 3.
we'll get it right next time.
What does equinox mean? Day and night of equal length. Completely spot on.
It's not the longest day.
It is not the longest day.
That's midsummer. Go on. So you're going to need to buy me a book because it's got bits of that in it when it comes out. More on that in a minute.
More on that shortly.
Yes.
Question number 4. What is the name of the spring flower that grows in woodlands? Now, there are multiple answers, but there are 2 main ones that we have in mind. Oh, and someone's got both of them. Both of them. Primrose and the bluebell. They were the 2 we had in mind. So take your pick as which one you'd like to be your right answer.
Was that one? Can't read that one.
That says nettles.
Nettles
Stinging.
do have flowers, but they're possibly not exclusive to spring.
And the final question, what is Imbolc? Please put your answer in the chat. Traditionally, the great festival and honouring of Brigid. Now, I will give you a point for that answer because the correct answer is the Gaelic traditional festival that marks the start of spring. So I will be nice and I will give you that point.
Indeed. So who's got 5?
Anyone got 5? Anyone got 4? 3, 2, 1, or 0? We've got a 3.
Cool.
Okay, you can't take the point there because apparently you googled it.
Disgraceful behaviour. Terrible.
Disqualified.
Absolutely. Right. Now, this is the bit we're going to title it News. Some of it you may have heard about, some of you might have some ideas, but this is our news little section. We have, I believe, 4 items of news. So, firstly, if anybody is looking for, well, hopefully some of you look forward to, we have got our 5 Senses at Oxney Church event on Saturday. There are still a couple of places left if anybody like them, but it's almost our best ever attended event, which is really exciting. Went out and scouted out the route this morning, and it's looking really good. We're going to go up onto the cliffs for a while. George from the History Project is going to do a little bit of a presentation up at the Dover Patrol Monument, which would be really cool. He's a lively, bubbly chap, is George. In fact, some of you will remember him actually came on earlier in the year. So that's going to be really fun. We're going to then go down back through to the Oxney Woods. We just those of you that are booked on, the email will be coming up tomorrow with the final details. So don't worry, we haven't forgotten. We're just waiting for a last couple of bits and pieces to come from Oxney Church, because this quite possibly is a one-off. George is quite confident that he won't get the chance to go in ever again. So it's one of those that is really, really special, and really excited and really looking forward to it.
And if you are a member, remember you can get discount with your membership. And this is a walk that you can use your discount on all of them. So the opportunity, if you are a member, is there to use that. So please feel free to.
Absolutely, and the website has now been updated. Although we've the member site is in progress. That's coming on, but it's now been updated, and the membership offers are now the actual offers as they are. So that's been sorted out, and you can say if you want to go on and book the event on the website, there is no code to go in and get the reduction, but we know who you are and we'll give you the reduction back on Saturday. So anyway, come out. We are going to see some pretty cool, spectacular flowers. Saw goldfinches out today, which is pretty awesome. In fact, saw that's something I'll tell you about. It's a news item in its own self. Quite often see buzzards up on St Margaret's, occasionally red kites. Saw kestrels today. That was really cool. So it's going to be an amazing day. We know the weather's on our side, so we haven't got to worry about that.
Also, a fantastic lunch included as well.
Indeed. Same lady who did the lunch from last time. So the lunch should be pretty awesome as well. So yeah, pretty cool. But yeah, go on, book on. The last few places are there, despite what the numbers may tell you. So that's that one. Other bit of news, actually, this evening. You know how I say every now and then, if you're outside and you're observing and you're engaging and connecting with the world, you'll see something you won't see every day. I went outside today to put something in the bin this evening. It was about 20 minutes for the show. I was turning around just to shut up the door to my office, and there was a hell of a racket in the hedge to the side. You'll have seen where our feeders is. We've had to count the sparrows videos and things there. And they were really kicking off. And literally about 25, 30 centimeters away from my face as I'm standing there, sparrowhawk comes out of the hedge with a sparrow in its feet and takes off and literally could almost cut my nose off with its wings, and then took off over the office. It's like, wow. You don't see those. I mean, one of the best things that I'd ever had with a sparrowhawk, I actually described in one of the chapters in the next book. But that was quite staggering. So that was pretty cool. It's one of those, got to be looking. And otherwise, if I hadn't been for the fact that all the noise had actually kind of like piqued my interest so that I was looking, I could have quite easily missed it because there was no actual sound from the sparrowhawk at all. It was just this big bird. And sparrowhawks, I mean, they're not buzzard-sized bigs, but they've got a wingspan of kind of this size, sort of like 50, 60 centimeters. I don't know the exact dimensions. And it's a female. So she's considerably bigger than the male. You can tell because she's kind of like much browner. The male is smaller and bluer. But it really was like, it was a second and the whole thing was over. You just got to be looking and you got to be aware and just aware of the sounds of change, because something like that you don't get unless you're paying attention.
So comment in the chat, you need some good CCTV in your garden.
Not only that, but I need to have something set up to otherwise, because even if I'd have been standing there with my camera ready to go, it was over in such a flash that I've even managed to press the button to start it, let alone record anything. And I'm generally got my camera ready most of the time, so I'm alert to get as many things as I do. But that was absolutely staggering, which kind of leads quite nicely into the fact that you'll have heard me talk about before. The second book, The View Over the Wall, is coming. We have a release date of the 25th of August for the Kindle. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But it's, if you like, for those of you that have read The 3 Year Pond. It's a natural successor, but it's very, very different. I mean, The 3 Year Pond was a very personal journey. The View Over the Wall is very much more about the world. It's about how we interact with the world. It's about as a species, uh, as well as personally. And it looks at energy and it looks at the cycles that go on in the world and how we interact. And I got quite involved and really enjoyed reading about how different religions and how different cultures actually look at the world and how they look to understand it and the spirituality they have that goes with it. And I read about, I mean, Buddhism and Muslims, North American Indian spirituality, African shamanism, the Australian Aborigines, and even our own Celtic histories, and typed all that together. It looks a little bit at auras, a little bit at chakras, because after all, if you're looking at energy, you can't write about energy in paper and not include an element of those. It questions what we believe. Um, you know, because if you believe that there's a spark that actually makes us work, and I kind of think we have to, then there's an awful lot goes on in this world that we actually can't deny. Because as a people, especially in the Western world, in the new world, there's a real mentality that says if you can't measure it, it can't exist. But we know as people, and we've talked about it on the show, if we took all of the parts of a human being and laid them out in a yard, yeah, and then put them all back together again, it wouldn't work because that spark would have gone. Whatever that spark is, that thing that makes us alive. And the fact that, if you like, energy can't be made or destroyed. So what happens to that spark? Lots of questions. And then there's an awful lot in there about observations of the world and of our natural world and what we can learn from that world and how we can possibly then function within it. Um, so I've been excited. I've been quietly excited about this the whole way through writing it, because I just felt maybe I had something, and it's been unbelievable because the book's gone out to 5 different people, 5 very different people of different ages, and with all due respect, ladies and blokes as well. Of different abilities and attitudes and outlooks at life. We've had an 18-year-old grade A-level literature student, lady in her 60s who's a retired teacher, my coach who describes himself as a low IQ dyslexic. He's probably a high IQ dyslexic, but he has real issues with reading. And he's still battling through that. And as he sort of said, the biggest praise for me was the fact that he's reading it, sticking with it, and wants to read it, whereas normally he just won't read because he has such a difficulty to do it. And the feedback that's coming back has just been unbelievable. So head's getting bigger. Going to need a new hat.
So new head if it keeps going the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Was it a new hat to fit me? Expanded head. Yeah, which is really cool. So the book's now with the editors, and we should have it back from them beginning of next week, and then we'll get everything sorted out and loaded with the publishing. But what we're actually going to do is on Wednesday, the 25th of November, we're going to get everybody that we possibly can to buy it on Kindle.
25th of November?
August. Oh, it's a good job he's here. 25th of August to buy it on Kindle. I'm not exactly sure what price is going to be yet because Amazon sets that rather than me setting that. But every single penny that comes from that day is going to get donated to CALM. Now, CALM is the campaign against living miserably, and it's actually looking to highlight and raise the profile of suicide in young men. And because the numbers are becoming aware of the fact that it's increasing, or maybe it always was high, but now there's more publicity around it. And they've also got chat lines and things like that. And I think that the parallel between some of the things that I address and talk about in the book and that charity is really kind of close. So we're going to be looking for everybody on that day to buy the book, and we're going to get the link out to, it'll be on Amazon, to as many people as we possibly can. And I want to raise as much money as I can that day to get that across to Calm, because I think they're a really, really important and upcoming charity that can use all the help and support that it possibly can. So we'll be getting that out onto the Facebook page, obviously in the show and everything, as soon as we can. The Kindle will become available on the 25th of August, and it would be fantastic if we really, really could smash it on that day. So it's going to be a case of getting that out to everybody that you know, everyone that you can think of. I mean, we're only talking probably maximum £2-3 up. I just don't know yet. But it would be really great to do that. And of course, if we can get Amazon bestseller status, that will help get the book out to more people as well. And I think that's going to be quite important as it stands. So the new book's coming. Really pleased about the cover. Jodie Lingard has done us the most amazing cover for the book. There have been bits and pieces of it going out on Facebook and social media. There's a new teaser section of the cover coming in a couple of days' time, I think. So have a look for that. Now, the paperback version, we're launching at the Family Fun Festival at Reuters on the August bank holiday. We're going to be there for the Friday and the Sunday of the August bank holiday. We've been asked by Anna Louise of Radio Kent to go and help out with that. And we're going to be running 5 senses experiences. But we're going to launch the book there as well. So anyone who comes and buys the hard copy that day will obviously be able to get this book signed, which will be really, really cool. Incidentally, anybody who buys the book on Kindle who would like then to buy as a thank you, if you want a copy of the paperback, we'll let you have that at cost as well. All we're going to need is a proof that you actually bought the Kindle, and we'll let you have a book at cost, plus obviously postage if we need to. But yeah, we're going to be at the Radio Kent Forest Family Fun Festival at Reuters, which is the Lost Garden of Sevenoaks, in August. And you can now book up for that on the Simple Life Circle website as well. It's there in the events section. And you can actually go in and not only book tickets to go to the festival itself, but you can actually book tickets for the 5 senses experience. It's going to be a much shortened version, but it's on there. So if you could want to come along to that, that would be fantastic. Radio 1 will obviously be broadcasting from there. There's going to be a lot of other events and various bits and pieces happening.
Doing Radio Kent.
What did I say this time?
Radio 1.
Radio 1. Well, Anna Louise actually is a DJ on Radio 4 as well. So Freudian slip, that's the second one now, but who's counting? So there's 3 events coming up, and I'm just buzzing. I'm absolutely buzzing, because it's just you just getting the word out there, and slowly people are starting to hear. So that's really, really cool. But if you've got any questions about those, then obviously put them in the chat or get on Facebook or message us and have a look at the website. That's Simple Life Circle.
It's in the link. The link is in the chat. So if you want to click through and have it there for when we finish, the link is there for you to use. I've just put it there.
It is. So you might be aware of the fact that we were planning to get ourselves across to YouTube. We haven't quite made it yet, and Ross is going to give us all an update as to what's happening and where we are. And I believe that certainly one of our members might be able to give us a little bit of help with that one. But anyway, across to you, mate.
Yes, we were originally planning, obviously, to go over to YouTube and solely be based on YouTube with the live stream, obviously, of the show being over there as well. Because we know with YouTube that you can have a little bit more freedom. We can use a few effects and a few tools to make it a bit better. But we did a few test runs and a few trial runs, and we are struggling a little bit with the technical side of it. One, to kind of understand exactly what's going on behind the scenes with YouTube, because it is entirely different to how Zoom runs. We're also having some technical issues in the fact of a lot of it is learning again. So we're trying to relearn how to stream on a different platform. and we're just trying to work out how to do it so we can give you as good of a quality show as we do now and make it better, as well as stream it so there is not so much of a delay. We did the test one and we had kind of a 30-second to a minute delay from us talking to a third party screen in another part of the house and in another place. And we're just trying to work out how to reduce that kind of delay between the two, because then otherwise, if there's a 30-second delay, then we're going to move on to another topic, and maybe you've got a question about that topic, and we aren't going to get your response for another 30 seconds to a minute after we've finished talking about that. So we're just looking at all of the options, because people do it. I mean, millions of people, thousands of people stream on YouTube and do it very well, and is perceived in a higher quality fashion.
That you can watch on your telly.
The videos aren't quite as jumpy as they are on Zoom, but we're just trying to work out how to do it all. So for now, we're obviously on Zoom today, but hopefully by August show we should be onto YouTube. There are 2 videos going up weekly. There hasn't been any this week because we've been preparing for this show, but there will be more going up. Probably there'll be one at the weekend, and then there will be 2 next week as well. I'm normally trying to upload them on a Tuesday and a Thursday, so you've got a little bit of a gap in between to watch whenever you'd like. But there are videos on there and the views are going up. If you're not subscribed yet, please do subscribe, because it helps us out, and it also pushes us to bigger audience, which means we can get more people involved, and we can do bigger and better things. So please subscribe, please like the videos, please watch them all the way through, because YouTube likes us when you watch our videos all the way through, and enjoy it. Please leave comments as well if you've got any questions about anything that's in those videos too. So we should be on YouTube hopefully next month. If not, we may be back on Zoom. We may be on another streaming platform. We will work around that, and obviously we will keep everyone updated with the newsletters, which are going out on the 2nd and 4th week of every month. So there'll be another one out next week, updating you on what we have planned, how events have gone, if there's any new events, and they will keep going out fortnightly just to keep you all updated, as well as the YouTube videos. So I believe that is everything for the news section this week. This month. Gosh, I'm saying that.
It is indeed this month. So that probably brings us to kind of a bit of a finale, the last Canterbury video. There'll be a couple of bits to talk about, obviously, after it. But
Canterbury number 4.
Oh, I found this most amazing piece of music. So, which actually kind of goes on a little bit after the video, because I kind of just didn't want to turn it off. But anyway, Westgate Gardens.
We are now in Westgate Gardens, and Westgate Gardens has 11 acres of ground and has actually had buildings in it since the 1400s. But the building you can see behind me now, which is the Tower House, has actually been built during the Victorian era. The building also was built by the Williamsons family. The Williamsons family gave the building itself and the grounds to the council, and it was opened up in the late 1900s as a public space for everyone to use.
But more importantly, this is the place where 4 little bit years ago I got married to the most amazing woman. It had everything we needed. It was small, it was compact, the food and everything else, but on site we could stay there if it was dry because we could spread out onto the terrace. But if it was raining, we could go upstairs and fill out around the whole venue. It has that romance, it has character, it has passion, it has style, and it has the most amazing grounds. And for us, it just worked perfectly. So what we've got here is an oriental plane tree, which is kind of cool in itself because this is Canterbury. So this tree has quite obviously been brought in, whether accidentally or on purpose is not clear. But what's absolutely unreal is that some kind of fungus, I would presume, has got into this tree because the trunk has distorted and expanded massively. The structure of it, the surface of it has no relation to the rest of the branches. It's obviously quite healthy, so it's not a destructive relationship. I'm not sure what the tree's getting from it, but it's very, very definitely distorted it. The tree it's just bizarre. The shape of some of the branches, the way that they are twisted. You need to come and see this tree in Westgate Gardens. God, is that not the most amazing piece of music? I mean, I'm not really a jazzer, but it kind of like, I came across that bit on, because we use, we're members of a royalty-free music site. And it was just like, with that tree and the jackdaws, it was just the most amazing piece of music. I absolutely love it.
That answers the question that was put in the chat. Are those crows or rooks? Or they're jackdaws?
They're jackdaws. And you know, we've said before, nature gives you the gifts at the right time for you. It might not be when you want them, because remember we were trying to do those creatures on all the different crows in the run up to Chris Cave coming on the show, and we failed completely to get any of the crows that we wanted to on film. And there we are in Westgate Gardens, and there's jackdaws in front of us doing their thing right there. So what could we do? Just had to film them because they were just entertaining little birds. They really are. So
I just think jackdaws are like the in the Corvid world, they are the smooth criminals. They are the ones you would see doing a moonwalk. If any of them are going to do that, it's going to be the jackdaw. They just look like when they're walking around, they're on the prowl. Like who's over their shoulder? Like that, they always look like they're going to be mischievous. And I feel like if you ever saw them out and about, and they would definitely be the Corvid you would see just moonwalking down the path.
Yeah,
And they'd see you, they'd stop, and then they'd fly away.
yeah, but they're the smallest of our crows. Certainly the ones we get locally. They're smaller than crows, smaller than rooks. You can tell them because they kind of got that dark kind of line and a different color between the top of their head and the bottom.
They have got that distinctive silver sheen that runs across the back of the head as well, which is well probably one of the the easiest way, or one of the easier ways to identify them for sure.
It's just the fact that they're crows and small.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Um, they actually got a name because when you listen to a jackdaw, when it's doing its moonwalk, it's you listen to the call. It's a very kind of chark, chark, chark kind of call.
Sort of chart door.
Well, the chark is when they're doing the moonwalk, and the door is when they fly away.
Yeah, chart door. Chart door.
But there are 1.4 million breeding pairs. I did mention it earlier. There are 1.4 million breeding pairs. Probably comes down to they can live everywhere. They can pretty much eat anything you put in front of them. So they are, they're fairly versatile, especially when they're moonwalking everywhere.
They're indeed fantastic little birds. Indeed. You got a little bit of spec here about the Oriental
plane tree. Now the one you saw in the picture is in the video is not the normal one. It is a very large trunk. I mean, you wouldn't be able to probably get your arms even near halfway around this tree. It is
probably two of you couldn't get your arms around it.
Yeah, it's a big trunk, and it's got a fungal infection, but it isn't harming the tree in any serious manner.
As far as we can tell.
As far as we can tell, because there's no serious work that's been undertaken on that tree. The Oriental plane tree, female flowers with red stigmas and are ready to receive pollen in May. When pollinated each year, flowers develop into a fruit called achene, something of that kind of line when you say it. I'm not entirely sure. It's spelled Achene. So make of that what you will, because I'm not 100%. They're usually found close to water, and they're also normally close to trees like the alder, the willow, and the poplar as well. And when you look in Westgate Gardens, they are no more than 15, 20 meters away from the river. So they're not far away whatsoever to see. And interestingly enough, the Oriental plane tree was the tree of the Greek philosopher Hippocrates. It is known to be a 500-year-old plane tree that was there when Hippocrates was around. So, a little bit of an interesting fact. Now, I hope you enjoyed our little wander around Canterbury, finding all these little spaces. Some of them I've either been to when I was so little that I'd forgotten about. Some of them I've never been to, like that little square just off the high street. And it is quite kind of fascinating when you go to these places and you just kind of have a little wander off the beaten track a little bit and just find these little green spaces. It's quite nice. I'd recommend doing it. Maybe not even Canterbury. If you're going to a different city, just have a look on Google Maps, find a green spot, put a waypoint there, and have a wander. Why not?
I was talking to George this afternoon, we're seriously thinking about putting on a Five Senses walk in Deal. And actually go and find there's 2 or 3 places that we know of already. Actually go and find those green spaces and do a Five Senses experience in town, and that'd be pretty cool as well. So there's kind of a theme coming here, but outdoors, indoors, countryside into town, or maybe just find the country that's already in the town.
Indeed. Well, I believe you have a final part for us before we
go off. Indeed. This is a section from the 41st verse in the Tao Te Ching, and it just strikes me as really, really relevant. And so I'm going to read this section through, and then just briefly have a little chat about it and then leave you to ponder it. It says, a great scholar hears of the Tao and begins diligent practice. A middling scholar hears of the Tao and retains some and loses some. An inferior scholar hears of the Tao and roars with ridicule. Without that laugh, it would not be the Tao. Now, the Tao that is referred to there is that spark I was talking about earlier that gives us life. But if you think about it, that's a kind of lesson for life, because there are some people that take on board everything that comes to them and learn from it and use it and look to enrich their lives, spend their entire time looking for the learning. Remember, I talked about the 4 attentions, I think, in the last episode. And then there are people, which is probably most of us fit into to some extent, whereby we learn something and we go, yeah, that's really cool. And we actually manage to pick up a bit of it and put that into place. But there's bits that slide off. And then there's the people at the bottom, the inferior scholars that just don't take anything on board, are maybe afraid of it, or maybe just don't get it and just diss and put things down and dismiss things. And we've all known people that are like that. And you know what? There wouldn't be life if there weren't all those different people and if there weren't all those different varieties of life. And sometimes I think it's quite healthy to just think, how do I actually fit into that kind of leveling? And, you know, I don't know whether anyone who knows me would agree or not. I like to think I'm somewhere between a good scholar and a middling scholar. But it's quite an interesting one to think about. You know, there's no right answer, but just have a think about where you might fit in to that analogy. Because that's a sign of life, obviously.
Well, we hope you have enjoyed your first instalment of the monthly episodes. We've had a great time. We've had a laugh.
We have indeed.
We've had a giggle, and we've thoroughly enjoyed filming even in the rain to bring these shows, and it just brings a little bit more diversity to them. So we hope you all have enjoyed. There will be more videos up on YouTube soon. We hope to see you all at Oxney Bottom at the weekend, and we also hope you have a lovely time watching all the YouTube videos and you enjoy yourselves. So until next time.
I think the next one is something like August the 19th, I think.
Somewhere around there.
So,
but we will see you all next time.
With a tranche of Scotland.
Indeed.
I'm not going to try and do a dodgy Scottish accent.
We will see you all soon.
Indeed. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.